Isn't that right? The people that participate in the co-ops? I think you get a pick or choose kind of thing. You can talk to your installer what he thinks. There can be some advantage, maybe if you have shade or some other reasons, as to why you might want to go with the microinverters, because since it's alternating current, you don't have to worry about balancing things. But a lot of times the answer is it depends.
Actually, a follow-up question on that one. I read a couple of places that the new National Inventor Code coming into place in a couple of years. I forgot which year it was, but I read a couple of places that they might restrict, they're thinking of restricting residential DC voltage to 80 volts, which would pretty much force people into microinverters. Do you think that's any truth to that? Can you elaborate on that, perhaps?
There's a lot of discussions as to what the definition of qualifications to deal with electricity are. Okay, and so when if they lower the numbers on direct current and some things like that in buildings and things, then people got to get tested or some things like that. But yeah, it could happen and it could make a difference.
That's nothing decided yet.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything decided on that, and the person that was qualified before, just because they changed the rules, now they're not qualified. I think that would be ridiculous, but I can tell you technical things relatively well. Telling you what politicians think is tough, but it's something we should keep our eye on. Okay.
So with the microinverters, you have to
So with the microinverters installed in each one of the panels, you would have to, in order to incorporate a battery, you'd have to have this centralized inverter.
So right now, the wires coming out of the panel on a microinverter, panel is alternating current. Okay, and so either I have to put the battery before the microinverter on the panel, okay, or I have to put the battery, say, in your garage or something. Then I need a separate inverter for it. Now there are people that are starting. And I don't think any of the co-ops are doing this yet, but you can get to the point where they put batteries directly on those panels. Okay, so but I don't. Right now I have an electric car in my garage, okay? And so all the electronics that go with the car are sort of separate from the inverter anyhow, so I wouldn't let that make your decision. The microinverter can be an advantage to you for weird reasons like shading and some other kind of things. But I'd talk with whoever might be giving you the quotes on that. We're not going to try to push one or the other.
Jim, do you want to talk about the solar edge system?
No, I didn't know what that is. So.
Okay, so what's now dominating installations in the co-ops is systems produced by a company called Solar Edge. And what they do is they've got, instead of a microinverter that turns the power to AC, it keeps it as DC, but it shifts the voltage up and down with a DC-DC converter to match the impedances across the panel. So they all have the same impedance or resistance, and then the voltages sum in series. So it gets the sort of advantage of the microinverter that it can handle some shading, because each panel can operate independently, but ultimately keeps it as DC until it gets down to the garage level, whereupon it flips it to AC. And Solar Edge now has products that are specifically made to go with batteries. So if I were putting in a new system today, I would get a Solar Edge system that's battery ready, and I would wait for the battery prices to drop.
Don't you need a thicker wire for DC than AC, so your wire cost would be?
It's trivial.
Yeah, I guess I was familiar with that. I just wasn't familiar with the brand name on that. But the answer is these all depend. Okay, I remind everybody you pay for dollars per watt installed. You can choose to pay more to get All American. You can choose to pay more to get this, pay more to get this. I mean, you can do all those things. The nice thing is you kind of get, when you go through the co-op process, a bid winner comes out, your friends help you figure that all out. And they give you like a Chinese a la carte menu, and they'll go through it with you and help you make those decisions. So I live closer to the ocean, so I had to get 3 rails because of hurricane issues and all those things. And they did a very good job of asking questions. You always call somebody at my place. Okay, and you ask the folks here. But the answer is that all these things, I hate to say it, is it depends. Okay? Are you ready for me to call it quits or not?
They're still coming in, so.
In Florida, it rains a lot in the summertime, but in the winter months, it doesn't rain as much. Have you studied at the Florida Solar Energy Center dirt film on a PV panel and how it decreases the power?
In Florida, it's not a problem. because it does rain, even in those months where it's not. Okay, now with the dry desert, this is a problem. Now at the same time, the humidity in the air means our solar irradiance is more diffuse, but we still get pretty good. So that's why those mirror panels don't work here in Florida as much as they do out in Arizona. But the other interesting thing I need to tell you about is that the solar panels are actually more efficient in cooler weather. So you will actually see, even though the temperatures outside in the winter is colder, you actually get more production, okay? And it's not the dust part, it's really more the issue of the temperature out there. Okay, so that's why in the high desert, they're super efficient. Okay, there's no moisture in the air, they get blue sun, they're not covered with solar. I mean snow, okay, they do well. So there's a lot of things that come into that, there's dust. Now there are people that are even making, we did a project where we're gonna put a bunch of solar panels on the moon, and you got all that dust and there's no water to wash them off, what do you do? So they put electrostatic things to push it off, so the panel actually uses electricity to zap off particles. So there's creative ways to do that, but all those things cost more money, okay? You can also argue that you could put solar facing west. Okay, most of us put the solar facing south because that maximizes the total kilowatt hours. But the actual demand for electricity is highest at 5 o'clock. And so do I push it facing west, okay? Just for a net metering thing, California had the same net metering law we did. And the utilities argued and said they want more money. So they increased the direct cost that went. But then they did time of use rates. So they actually paid you more for electricity than they made at 5 o'clock. So as it turns out, everybody in California should now add more solar panels facing west, and it's cost effective for them to do that. So the utilities thought they won on the deal, but when we did the real calculations, it actually turns out you put solar facing west. So, yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, they're coming.
Oh, you mean I can still play? Boy, this is good.
How do you measure what size battery and how much it costs to what you have for your solar system?
Very interesting question. Okay. A battery is both a reactor and a tank. Okay, so let me use this in a mindset. If you wanted to double the gas mileage of your pickup truck, the range, double the range, you'd buy 5 jerry cans and fill them full of gas and throw them in the back of the pickup truck. So you just buy more gas. Problem with the batteries, they can buy more batteries. Okay, so when you ask me the questions, if you want to do 5 days without power, and guarantee that I make solar every day at such and such a month, I can size that battery system. Because if you did it every day, you get zero energy home. It means you make as much solar as you use, and it means I'd only need the battery to handle that electricity I didn't use those hours. But the next day, if it's not sunny, you're gonna come back to me and say, wait a minute, you didn't size my battery right. So the answer, that's super depends. That's personally why I think hydrogen and fuel cells will take over, because I can store hydrogen in a tank. But that's another thing. And you'll have a 75 kilowatt fuel cell car in your garage you can use as a peaking power at night and run the neighbor's electricity. Those are complicated questions, right? Depends on the person.
We really only talked about the lithium battery type solutions, but what I've been doing a lot of research in batteries, and I see other systems out there, but I didn't even think about hydrogen. So anyway, are there other alternatives?
I guess, yes, there's a lot of things in batteries. You as a consumer, there's no business model for you to buy a battery today. But I will tell you about the batteries. Depending on the batteries we use in our vehicles, those are all self-contained kind of batteries. And the buses that want to charge up really fast use lithium titanate ones. In your cars, you do lithium ion. You know, you can argue about range and charging times and things like this. Eventually, the utilities will start having batteries they call flow batteries. So it's a separate power reactor, and then you use tanks. And so power is one thing. Okay, that's the kilowatts, if you will. Kilowatt hours is energy. So when you ask me on these emergency things, you know, how big is my tank? Well, the problem with the most batteries you use in cars or the batteries you put in your house is both the tank and the power device. Okay, and so they're not decoupled. Okay, but the utilities eventually, I think, will start using these flow batteries where they use big tanks of liquid electrolyte that contain chemical energy, and then run it through a reactor and so on and so forth. So you get things like vanadium batteries, iron chloride batteries, sulfur batteries. They get all kinds of things out there. Okay. Yeah, this gentleman over here, I think, was next.
said that with the microinverter,
Yeah, the orange
you
can.
can have a separate plug. Is that only with the Sunny system, or can any inverter that's already a microinverter?
It's a SMA inverter that goes in your garage with regular DC panel, and it has the ability to give you, I don't know, 2 kilowatts or something.
How much does the sun half the peak output.
Okay, so it's an add-on option to.
No, it comes with it.
Yeah, it was a very quick. Yeah. Very quick question. I know it's not going to work on roof solar, but what would be your intake if you didn't talk about in your presentation on tracking solar system here in Florida? If you have measured it, basically for a community solar project.
It is actually cost effective for tracking solar for a utility scale, more so than it is fixed. And so let everybody knows what that means. It actually, on a single axis, it actually follows the sun. So I'd have it sort of south, probably east, and then I'd move it like this to south and west, okay? So I would get more of that solar. I'd pay more for it. So the initial upfront cost is a little bit more. It's like $1.06 versus $1.03. But it actually makes more electricity, so it's cost effective. There are talking about even putting that on buildings. But that wouldn't be for a home. Okay, that'd be on a commercial building, like flat top roofs or something. Oh yeah, we do that in Florida. And FPL, as an example, has some both fixed and that. So we actually have examples of those working. It's like anything else, you pay a little bit more and you hope you get something back. And but for the hassle factor of small systems and everybody's roof is different, everything's different, it just doesn't work out. But on flat top, big commercial buildings, that could be a cost effective way to go. But we got hurricane issues too, though, by the way, so moving parts are tougher too. But
yeah, I know you say there's not a good business model for going with battery backup, and I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, why spend all this money on batteries when, in our case in Miami, our battery backup is at P&L. They work great that way. But I went ahead and plunked down a $500 deposit on a Powerwall because I want a placeholder in case legislation changes and they legislate out batteries. At least I got something hanging on the wall. Yes, right. I can just go with a hatchet and chop the wire and have done with it. So that's my argument for batteries.
I would never encourage you to chop the hatchet, because I want you guys to think more noble than this. Okay? Eventually, you're going to have solar on your house, and the local hospital isn't getting enough power, and you'd be more than happy to provide it to them. Okay, so you still want to stay interconnected to the grid. It's like owning a PC and not connected to the internet. Okay, I mean, you can do that. Okay, and you'd like to cover yourself, like you just said. And Jacksonville Electric, by the way, it's an argument about the net metering, but in fairness to Jacksonville Electric, I'm not saying they got the numbers right. They're telling you we'll only pay our avoided cost, but we'll give you a $2,000 discount on a Tesla Powerwall. So, you know what I'm saying? They're trying to balance this out. Utilities owning storage on your side of the meter is a new business model for them. But they'll start going down that path. I think they will. So we'll see. So if you want to do it as an early adopter, I'm not telling you no. I just want to make sure that you know that you're buying an insurance policy. Okay? You can buy more expensive insurance policies. That's you're right.
From you, and so we're going to take just a little bit to discuss what we discussed today, and I think we're going to jot down some notes because we really want to hear from you what you learned in the sessions. What would you like to see in Florida? Help guide us, help guide policymakers. We want to share this information because you are truly the leaders that going to help us grow solar in Florida. So Jody's going to be our note taker, and we're going to share this afterwards. And Heaven has the microphone, and so whoever attended community, okay, I'm getting the note. Your packet that you received when you walked in, make sure you don't leave today without looking at the information. There's more information about membership. We'll talk about that too. Fill out the survey, and there is a happy hour after this, And that is at, don't forget to join us at the Post-Solar Congress Happy Hour at Crafted Block and Brew on Hiawassee Road. So look for that. We can talk solar with some brews.
It's right down the road.
Turn it on. There we go.
Right down the road.
Okay. Okay, so make sure you don't leave without looking that and turning some information in. And Kara, anything else on that note?
Your mic is next door.
What's this one?
Right.
So you can hear me?
Yeah, see, there's a survey there. This is our first Solar Congress, so we want to improve every year thereafter. We're excited about this. We want to hear from you and your thoughts. So, attendees that were in, let's see, community, solar in your community. What did you learn? Don't all jump out at once. Who has the microphone? Okay. What would you like to see with regard to solar in your community? This is when we needed the coffee or the hot tea. All right. How about EV and storage? Or did you have one? Yeah. I'm coming. No, we want to hear from you. What would you like to see with solar in the community, EV plus storage?
Excuse me, I'm sorry, I grabbed this phone microphone. I'd like to see, this was a great introduction for my wife and I, because we're just starting to do research on solar. We're going to go visit some manufacturing plant here, actually down in Florida on Monday. We're going to be visiting other, how they build the equipment. I'd like to see some vendors have their equipment here next time so we can kind of look at some stuff, you know, while we're here in between. Just a thought, if you could do that.
We like to keep it vendor neutral. There is a 5-watt solar panel to your left.
Yeah, I saw that. That was really impressive.
Okay, and I saw another, do you want to go first?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for the experience. It's been very educating, very enlightening. I'm new in Florida, just moved last summer, and I've been a solar advocate for the last 9 years where I come from. And I was very enthusiastic about this event, so I was really waiting for it for a couple of months. And it went beyond my expectations, so thank you very much. There was something that I wanted to share is if you guys have had the experience of, let's say, going to a neighborhood and kind of sweeping every house, asking people what they think and if they want solar. I have tried that, and it's amazing the response in terms of most of the people, and I'm meaning way beyond 75% perhaps, are neither interested in solar or don't know much about solar, and I think that to me should be the biggest obstacle for really what this is all about, which is increasing the velocity of a grassroots movement to have the sunshine state really shine in solar. So I think in part it's because all these people, they just don't know much about solar, and perhaps the media plays a role there that is very important. So I think that something to be considered is to develop a strategic media public relation, education program throughout the state, so people are really educated about the benefits of going solar. So when movements or institutions like Sierra Club or Solar Neighborhood do their job, it's a household name. They know about it, and they really want to get involved, and they really are going to be the one pushing their local Congress people or politicians to push in Tallahassee for this kind of movement. And just to end, to me it was very impressive also the hit that meant for solar system after the hurricane, the backfeeding issue, that you have a solar system that you were asked not to turn on for your own benefit because of the backfeeding electricity. I mean, that's understandable. You don't want to kill somebody that is working on the grid. But I'm not an engineer, but I think that, for instance, Dr. Franklin institution could come up with a very simple relay kind of a system that you can shut down the backfeeding of your solar system to the grid, that it could somehow, I know it's going to be a way of fight for permitting perhaps, but if you can do that, you don't need the batteries, and you can shut up your system off the grid, and you can at least enjoy the electricity that your own solar system, rooftop solar system you have. So there are things like that that perhaps people don't know about it, but it could be a big turnoff for solar in the state. So I'm really looking forward for this kind of event, get involved, and perhaps learn together and join the movement. Thank you.
Sounds like you need a co-op in your area so you can knock on those doors for us.
Okay, Dave is gonna follow up, and then we will get to Cliff.
Yeah, you're talking about traditional media, about possibly advertising on TV and also going door to door. And those are certainly effective. But now, of course, social media is the best way to reach people. And in Celebration, the town I live in, we have something called the Celebration Back Porch. And I just put a little squib in there about who wants to go solar. And I got 67 households that said they want to go solar. And this was about 6 months ago. So I know that social media are going to be how we communicate about this, and that's how I think most of us got here. It wasn't through TV advertising or door to door, it was through social media. So social media is your best friend for spreading the word about social.
That's a great point. Hashtag Florida Solar Congress.
Maybe you're doing this already, but I think what I would like to see is, you know, this is somewhat of a game of chess. I mean, the other side has much larger forces to suppress this. I mean, I've heard of very knowledgeable people talk, but you know, a lot of things I heard, and I've looked at things on the internet, are kind of new to me. I think you need to better communicate what is said, and you know, make more convincing arguments. When someone says to me, yo, you get a 12%, 14% return, well, I look at it as, well, it's taking me 10 years, you know, payback. I think if you say you're going to likely get this much money back when you sell your house, and in this many years, if it drops down to 3 years or even immediately, then it becomes almost a no-brainer if you could sell it that way. Also, what was not said was, I think a lot of us have similar interests outside solar, so if we could link up with other groups such as things related to sustainability, water conservation, then you have many more people working to the same cause instead of, you know, all these smaller groups working on their own.
Also a great point. Take the next car pledge.
One quick question to Dr. Fenton. I'm confused about SMAs and inverters and basically batteries. And basically, if you're going to anticipate installing batteries at some future time, how would you set up your SMA and your converter configuration?
Well, if you know that you want to add batteries later on, you can talk to your installer right now, and he can give you an inverter that can handle that, and then you can add the batteries later. You can always talk to your solar installer and say, hey, let's put more rails up there, and I'll add panels later. So, I mean, you can talk that over with whoever wins the co-op about what you think your future goals are, and let them talk to you about that. So SMA sells inverters, of course, that do both, okay? So you could always come in and swap out the new inverter when you add the batteries later. Yeah. Yeah, I'm thinking of it, but ask your installer, about that, and if he does that, he may say to you, hey, listen, I can put the inverter that handles the battery up, and it'll cost you $300 right now, and you may choose to do that, or you may not. So I think the costs are coming down on everything. So we may start getting to the point that the right answer today is different than the right answer 3 years from now. And the answer may be throw away the thing that's 3 years old. I don't know. That's what we do with our cell phones.
Okay, we have one question over here on this side of the room.
Hang on, I'm just going to answer quickly. We went solar back in 2015. Still don't have a battery backup because we look at FPL as our battery. We use them every night. They're pretty reliable. Maybe one day we'll get a battery backup. As Simon has said, keep it down deposit for a power wall. A lot of people have misconceptions about whether power walls can work with microinverters. They can. It's a great conversation to have with an installer based on whatever kind of inverter you choose to go with, and then what kind of battery you want to choose to go with in the future. But the first step is go solar. Get some panels. Dress up your roof.
Yes, thank you very much to all the group of the Congress, did a great job. But I wanted to emphasize the fact that you know, still the battery part is kind of the Achilles tendon of solar. We have created a demonstration through a trader that is totally standalone solar with batteries, which actually kind of old style right now. I need to modernize because they're still lead acid batteries. But I do believe that that's going to be the way of the future because it allows you to truly be independent, and especially with the major hurricanes that we had recently, sadly enough, the battery is an essential part of being able to continue to have power. So to me, to some extent, I feel that solar, and thanks to Tesla and Panasonic and all these companies that are really working on making a battery that really is cost effective and that lasts a long time, because I tell you, battery maintenance is a major issue in our ATI solar, we call it the ATI solar lounge. So if anyone wants to see an example how it actually works in a small scale, I have a perfect example, and it works very well. But I do believe that that we need to think of using batteries and including batteries when we try to sell solar as something into the future. It's the only way that makes sense, and people will be able to buy it or see it as an advantage a lot faster and a lot easier than just strictly day solar.
This is just for the, well, maybe for everybody else as well, but for you guys for the future. I was totally shocked when I discovered during Hurricane Irma that PV doesn't work. So I would like to emphasize that you emphasize that, or somebody to the people buying solar going forward, because as I kind of agree with him, it's just a major weakness of the system. It's probably the only weakness of the system as it currently exists. And like he said, batteries, I don't think batteries are the future, in my personal opinion. I mean, he mentioned hydrogen as an example. I've looked at flywheels and cage systems as possible because they're more environmentally friendly and what have you. But just the idea that, again, that it needs to be made very clear to everybody, because it sure wasn't to me, about solar and the need for battery backup.
Thank you.
I don't use FPL or Duke as my backup battery. I use Arcadia Power. It's wind. And they're required to provide it to you if you apply for it. So go to Arcadia Power and you can bypass the utilities.
Okay, we have a question back here.
Hey there, I'm just wondering, we seem to be logically very concerned about net metering changes and preemption and state rules and this rule that is in place that's not a law. So I know what I'm suggesting is not going to be easy, but why don't we go for a constitutional amendment to prohibit the banning of net metering in a way that's favorable to us? Like, why don't we take charge and get in front of it instead of what are they going to do here, what are they going to do in Lakeland, what are they going to do here? Let's get in front of this. This is the people in this room that can make that happen, that can start this initiative, and so let's do that.
Good point. We noted it.
Okay, I'm Bill Young, and I know Mr. Fenton over here because I work for him. And he keeps the world's or Florida's best kept secret. The Florida Solar Energy Center is Florida's best kept secret. So, sir, I'm very sorry that you bought a solar system from someone who lied to you.
They didn't lie, they just omitted.
Okay, omitted, okay? So Florida Solar Energy Center does education. They have workshops. So I got my first solar system in 1978. Were all you born then? How many people were born at that time when I got my first solar system? Okay? So that means I've been doing it for a very long time. And I worked for this man for 22 years. So take advantage, your tax dollars pays him, and you pay my retirement. Okay, so I thank you for the retirement I get. So the problem is education. I think that's your issue up there. You have a lot of people saying things that they really don't know anything about because they went to Google University. Okay, they didn't go to UCF or South Florida. They went to Google University. And I think we need to find an approach of handling these people who are not being told the truth or told what they want to be told, or someone's telling them to make a sale. Okay, so there's 5 different kind of solar systems, and 3 of them have batteries. And so the cheapest one you can buy is grid tie. So don't think like Walmart, I want the lowest price no matter what. Buy what you really want, and know what you want.
Okay, we have one question over here, or comment?
Just, there were a lot of requests and questions about the battery backup systems, and as Dr. Fenton pointed out, the batteries are dropping in price tremendously. As a solar contractor, we do have, and it's very common, we're not the only ones, that have inverters that are battery ready. So you can go ahead and install the inverters today. It's only a little bit more to go to that type of inverter. SolarEdge is one of them actually that works already with a Tesla wall. And then you can choose to have the battery sometime down the road, which goes along with Jody's suggestion that we go solar, and then we can always add the batteries when they become affordable. You don't have to then change the inverter down the road.
Thank you.
So I keep reading about the job growth that has exploded with solar energy and renewables, and I'm kind of wondering where the jobs are. Every time I go on a job board, I see like 2 jobs in the state of Florida listed for solar, and they're usually installers. So I'm wondering what kind of jobs are out there besides installation, and where to find those jobs.
Well, we
Open Southwest Florida coordinator,
Yes.
and I can speak as someone new to this position. My master's is in nonprofit management, and I worked for Catholic Charities and Human Services before this. So it's Solar United Neighbors is a nonprofit, but and by no means I don't hold a CVC, and I'm not a solar contractor. So there are many ways to contribute to this cause and to help grow not only the solar industry but renewable energy in Florida. So, yeah, it's one example.
all right. Anybody over here on this side of the room would like? Oh, I do have. This was found in the men's restroom.
Anybody missing a cell phone?
Yep.
Is that you, Bill? Is this yours?
Okay. I have mine right here.
Oh, it's your lead volunteers.
Glenn and I got in conversation, so here.
Don't blame Glenn.
Let's get about jobs. Oh, this is number.
Yeah, that was a great point.
I'm with Florida Renewable Energy Association. We're a club. We started in 1955. Okay, so I am old, yeah, and I have a gray hair. But in 1955, ACES, American Solar Energy Society, started. And if you go to their webpage, they have a little icon that's called Solar Jobs. And you can look there, and employers or solar companies put advertisements there if you want to look. You will also go to SEIA, Solar Energy Industry Association, SIEA, And if you look on their webpage, they also have another place where you can find jobs. So you can join SIA, or you can join FRIA, or you can join ACES. And so you have this new, this group here, the SUN group. So there's a lot of organizations now, and new organizations besides old organizations, that like the ones that have job postings. And you can look there that you can find a job. So it's not just the newspaper or the employment office, but there are organizations that have been around a long time doing this that you can find jobs on.
I'm just going to tack on to that the US GBC runs a green job board as well. Other questions?
Yes, I just wanted to follow up because apparently I was misunderstood. By media, I meant regular mainstream media, like news channels, like newspapers, do coverage stories on solar, why they're good for Floridians. What I know, they every now and then they just focus on net metering issues or the Jacksonville municipality did something, but those are news generated on their own. What I meant was a PR, marketing, well thought, educational exposure strategy, perhaps anchored in Dr. Fenton's institutions, been there for a while, to provide with the information so the general public that lives in Florida, they are educated on their benefits, so they start desiring to go solar. And all this, this gentleman over here, give me this piece of paper, said the top 10 solar energy myth like this are known by mainstream, by the mineral, those people that are just living out there, and they probably think that solar energy is too expensive to be affordable, or that they can damage the roof, or if a hurricane comes, it was not going to do them any good. What this gentleman said over there, I was appalled when I read the news that you couldn't turn on your system. I understood why, but probably since I was not educated that that was a possibility, then I bought the equipment, I made a big investment, and when the power went out, I thought, well, I have no problem because I have a solar factory on my roof. No, you don't. See, those educational issues has to be constantly on in every channel. You know, like a strategy in that regard. And one final thing is, the gentleman that just left asked about municipal utilities. Of what I heard here today, I guess they could be the greatest gatekeeper to go into Tallahassee. There's 34 municipal utilities in Florida, and there's about 36, 38 electric cooperative also in Florida. They don't cover much, but they cover about 20%, 22% of all homes in the Florida. So these are utilities owned by people. They are non-profit. So you don't have the problems with invested-owned utilities, and they shouldn't have any issues going for solar. But they do, for many reasons. They just don't know, they don't feel the heat of the pressure of their constituents. And yes, many engineers work there, they're just used to working for the utility company, so they're somehow afraid that they're either going to lose their job or they're going to lose some benefit. So I guess that if we're able to convert the municipal utilities first into promoting solar, because in the end it's going to be into their best interest, and by their interest I mean the city and the people of the city, perhaps that will be a huge experience for pushing in Tallahassee for broader policies and benefits. Along with Mayor Phillip, final data comes out, that should be very interesting data to also push forward in the state legislature. Thank you.
I'd like to comment on what the gentleman just said. In regards of getting mainstream media, I don't think we need mainstream media. How many people really watch the news? It's such a small amount. Everyone's, like someone said, they're being educated by Google. I think the way you do it is exactly what this organization is trying to do. Grassroots. I'm with Sierra Club and with Phil Compton and Ready for 100. It is a grassroots movement. On the survey, they talk about a GoFund project for a nonprofit organization, a church, a school. That is how you're going to get your community involved. That's how you're going to get the media via you're doing a church. Habitat for Humanity, putting solar panels on it. You're going into all of these communities who aren't watching the news, who won't be affected by mainstream media, and you're getting their buy-in because they're seeing it. They're seeing the senior citizen who is being affected, and they didn't have to pay. That is how you're going to get the grassroots movements. Once you have the grassroots movements, you support the Sierra Club and Ready for 100. And then we then take it now to the state level. But that's how you do it, is in the communities, in your the biggest bang for your buck, schools, churches. That's what Mary and Mike got started. It was in a church. Those are your communities. Why? Because it's a trust system. And that is where the strongest is. And that's where you have to have your strongest education so that it never gets a negative point of view. Thanks.
Jim mentioned his Nissan Leaf, and I wanted to talk about one thing about electric cars. I will never own a car again. And certainly I will never own a gasoline-powered car again. I lease a Nissan Leaf. I leased last year's Nissan Leaf because they gave it to me for $195 a month with no down payment. So go in and say, I don't have any range anxiety. I want to lease last year's technology. They'll give you a great deal. They gave me a charge point card that I can use on any charge point anywhere in the state for free, and they also have chargers at all the Nissan dealers that'll reload your car in 30 minutes or less. So I have zero range anxiety, and I get about 120 miles on a charge. I charge it overnight. So think about that, leasing rather than owning. If we could, we'd lease our iPhones because next year's iPhone is coming right down the pipe.
My name's Dory Larson. I'm with the Southern Alliance for Clean Energy, and to dovetail on what his comments on electric vehicles, we've got the Next Car Pledge, which is an initiative to get people to pledge that their next car will be an electric or a plug-in hybrid electric vehicle. If you are interested in taking the pledge, I would love to have more signatures and more people trying to move the electric vehicle movement forward.
I kind of want to comment on something. So this was mentioned a while ago about how to run your system without backfeeding. And I know that some people do have like a dedicated panel and dedicated circuit, and that's one way without a battery. And then speaking of EVs, I know a couple people in this room, I don't see Charlie, I don't know where he went, that actually use their panels to charge their EV batteries and then use that to power their electronics during IRMA. So I think Jody did as well. Or Simon. So that's one workaround. Your EV is a battery.
All right, so Jody is taking notes, and we want to pass this information in your thoughts. So many of you haven't spoken up. Maybe we need to bring in like some hot tea.
I first have a question for Dr. Fenton about this thing that was mentioned, that the gentleman in brown jacket here mentioned before, how you to run solar power when the power is out. And what is really the reason for that you have to shut the system on for anti-islanding purposes? But you can't do that if you don't have batteries. But why are we allowed to do it when we have batteries? Is that a, can we, do you know?
Your inverter speaks to the grid. And so it has to, in the case of the inverter for solar, it has to take that DC energy you've got and match the frequency and everything with what's coming in the grid. So when the grid's operating, it's matching that all the time, right? It is set up right now, okay, such that it doesn't read any grid to match it to. It won't put it back on that line unless there's another place to put it. And so with some inverters, you can get some plugs, and you got it. So the answer is, depending on the inverter you buy, you don't even have to have batteries. There can be electricity at that plug. Not electricity everywhere in your house, but at that plug you can get it. And that's incrementally not any more cost or anything. So for those of you who want a little bit that might run your refrigerator for those 5 hours, or some fans, or a few light bulbs, you can do that now, okay? So that system is set up to, because the PV, it doesn't have any place to go. Okay, that's part of the problem. Okay, it's not the utilities are evil or something. There's some safety features in it, but it's an issue of where you put it. Okay, so I think you can always add. You can get the gentleman that was asking this question earlier. You can always buy a system that's a little bit more than that. It still gives you the plug, and then you add batteries later on. It does, but you should plan for that in advance. That's all. I don't think this is an evil empire thing. It's just it's an issue of you. Solar is not for you to make power. Solar is there for you to lower your electric bill. Okay, and offsetting expensive utility electricity is how you make money every day. You're now asking me what's the best option for you to do when you don't have any power. And I'll tell you, I hate to say it, go buy a gasoline generator. It's still the cheapest thing to do, and you hope you never need it. But as we move along, the battery options will be there. So right now, if you really want some plugs, so you can't say that it doesn't work, okay, it can cost you incrementally more. I know somebody from here in Solar would tell me that the SMA Sunny Boy, it was one of the options on mine. I chose it. So I did use my plugs.
About Irma and the storm, just for clarification purposes. If you have a solar panel system with an inverter and a battery backup, you don't need to be worried about getting electrocuted. I mean, you're completely off grid at that point, right? So it's only the concern would be because if you have the power coming to your house and you have a plug, then you could get electrocuted if there's a flood or something like that. Isn't that correct? We can't rely on an off-grid system, and we're not forced by the municipality to shut it down. Isn't that correct?
Can I say something to that? I mentioned again, there's 5 different kinds of systems. One of them is grid tied. Okay? That means there's 4 other...
There's 5 different inverter systems. That means there's 4 other inverter systems that have another source of multiple sources of energy. Dr. Fenton is trying to say that. It has to have somewhere's the grid. When they talk you into buying one kind, grid tied, that means it dies if the grid goes away. But if you buy an interactive one, or you buy an Outback, the LS1 comes with batteries, and it talks to the grid. There's 5 different kinds. You have to decide what kind you want and what you want to do with it. If all you want to do is make money selling to the utility, buy a grid tie. Otherwise, the other kinds have batteries. The kind I said I bought in 1978 has batteries. In 1978, everyone had batteries. In the year 2000, when we put net metering, that new ruling threw out batteries. Before 2000, all the solar systems had batteries. So you're working off a new philosophy of grid tied. The old philosophy, like I have at my house, my inverter is that old that it had batteries back in the 80s, okay? So they sold you a new one made in the 2000 years, which don't have batteries. So buy the kind of inverter, one of 5 kinds, that performs as you want it to perform. Whether you want to buy and sell, be grid tied, and make money, or whether you want to be interactive, or you want to be storage, or you want to be standalone, you got to know what you're looking for. That's why I said, go and take a workshop, learn the different 5 kinds, and decide which one you want to throw money at.
Investment, not for money. That's Bill's all.
Yeah, I want to elaborate a little bit on what Dr. Fenton and others have mentioned here. And we need to include this in our education process, because I keep hearing this misconception come up over and over and over again. Why can't I use my grid tie system when the power goes down? As someone mentioned, the evil power company's rules or the laws. There is a safety issue, but the biggest issue is that your house's power, as Dr. Fenton on the engineers, if I still correct me if I get wrong here, your house power requirement goes up and down, up and down. Your solar panels providing power goes up and down, up and down. When they're matched, everything's good. What happens when they're not matched? What happens when your solar system's trying to make 5 kW and your house says, no, I don't need any right now? Your voltage starts going, and then your inverters start popping, or maybe your electronic equipment goes out, bad stuff. Smoke comes out, you don't want to go there. And then the other way around, if the clouds come over and your solar system's only making 1 kW, and your house says, I want to turn on both air conditioners, now all of a sudden you've got a huge load, and the voltage goes, and guess what happens to electric motors when you try to run them under voltage? The smoke gets out again. And those little genies in there stop working when the magic smoke comes out. So that's the reason it's not legislation. I keep hearing that over and over and over every time I come to one of these meetings. I think we should include that in the training, point out, even though I know everybody's not technical, a lot of people don't know the electricity, but just explain that you can't have a mismatch between the power you're generating and the power you're using without damaging equipment. And that would clear up to people why they can't use their grid tie system when the power goes down.
Noted. I think Jody's noted that a few times by now.
I said it in my own session.
Where can I learn more about using my EV as a battery source? That's the first I've heard of that.
Charlie Barron's.
Pardon?
Charlie, he's here today. He's somewhere running around. He might have left already.
So yeah, we have many of you are subscribed to our Florida listserv, and Charlie Barron's is a name you're probably familiar. His face is walking around here somewhere, but he can speak to EVs and charge everything with regard to his panels and his EVs. So hopefully we can find him soon. But Dr. Fenton.
Simon, you want to raise your hand that you can also answer questions?
You can always go out and buy an inverter that you plug into your cigarette lighter on any of your cars, okay? And so I'll remind you, if your goals are to charging phones and stuff like this, and your gasoline engine then charges up the lead acid battery anyhow, okay? And if you've also got an electric leaf or something like that, or a bolt, you can do all those things. We're not quite yet to the level where you could say run a Chevy Volt, which has got an internal combustion engine in it, which makes electricity all the time. Worked yesterday, unlike my generator might work today, tomorrow. Okay, you can do that. We actually can get that thing to export electricity back yet. We're able to do that technically, okay, but we're concerned about safety issues and we're concerned about extra costs. And when we can't sell electric cars in the first place, these are trade-offs. But you'll get there where I think you can use your solar and your car to meet your needs, but we're not quite there yet.
I want to know, we've heard a lot of consumer education, and I can tell you we are certainly working on that front. So thank you for the tips. What else, besides more consumer education, should not just we be working on in Solar United Neighbors? What can you do in your own neighborhood besides growing co-ops? What can you do to talk to your legislative officials, locally and statewide? What kind of policy would you like to see? Many of you are leaders already in your community. You'd like more options, or what do you want to see to help your neighbors go solar? That's my question. What do you want to see more, other than more consumer education, from us and from you?
Angela?
Time of day metering.
North Carolina has it. Why don't we? California has it. In general, it's you might be right. There's cases against overall.
I just think another thing to add to the mix is financing.
So we've got a poster from First Green Bank. I went to one of Mary Dipple's very first sessions, and Mike, when you guys were over at the library, remember in Orlando, I showed up with that TV crew from Vice President Gore, but anyway, First Green Bank was there, so that was amazing. And then the Solar Energy Loan Fund is another one. They're showing up in other communities. It's a nonprofit. So, you know, it's all about, I've said this for a number of years, the only thing the investor and utilities sort of have over you, or even muni utilities, is the ability to finance a power plant, because they build it and then they stick it on your bill and you have to pay for it. So if you can finance, if you can't afford the upfront cost. So I just think that's crucial. And I know you guys are sort of open to that. You're not picking a financier or anything, but it is an option and you're educating people. So I just want to make sure that's up there, because I think that's key for a lot of people. Not everybody can afford the upfront cost.
We can note that when we started, there was really just one bank, First Green Bank, and then they expanded, and so they're offering across the state. And since then, now we have a full flyer of financing information from other banks that are also offering solar. So it's getting there. We're glad that's growing too. There's more options for people.
Hello? Yeah. My apologies if this has already been said, but if it has, it bears repeating. And that is not only engage with your elected officials about, you know, being a strong advocate for solar, but get them to put panels on their rooftops. Because once they have that vested interest, they're going to fight really hard. It's a $20,000 upfront investment, give or take. They're not going to want to see that go away. So make sure they go solar.
Yeah, I think Solar United Neighbors of Florida has helped 3 mayors go solar at this point. 3?
I think so. I think so, and they're certainly supporting. More and more officials locally are coming out to our press conferences and speaking out for their community.
One option for activism is for communities to create, if they don't already have one, sustainability advisory boards. I live in Winter Park. We've had a sustainability board there for over 10 years. I happen to serve on it. And I know there are some other communities that have just helped get that going. These boards have sustainability plans, which are designed to take a look at city operations, see what they can do to be more sustainable, and look at the community at large, see what residences and businesses could do. And the topics are, you know, water, recycling, energy efficiency, home section. Many of our communities have sustainability directors. I would encourage you to get to know them and find out what they're working on. Maybe there's some way for you to plug into that. So this whole sustainability movement is in some of those cities already. But if it's not in your city, bring it there.
All right.
Thanks again. Like Susan said, financing is a big issue. So I heard Dr. Fenton said something that really shocked me. I wrote it down. And I'm totally with him. I'm guessing or betting that banks would rather have my money paid to him in a loan to put solar on my roof than paying my electric bill. So it would be also a good strategy, I think, to perhaps work with a network of banks in Florida to somehow produce a standard protocol for people having a special window for financing their solar roof that would take care of perhaps permitting or stuff like that. I know installers tend to do that as well. And take care of even in financing, but financing it's not like a general option for everyone. There are people with bad credit. What do you do with them? So creating a think tank on how to cover that issue, I think would be a good idea. And once again, hopefully the third is the charm. When you create a solar co-op public library meeting in your county, in your city. What I meant is that perhaps if you let your local media know of that. If you go to the park and you do a mass recruiting educational program or marching down Main Street, let your local media know that. I'm here, but I have a pretty good relationship with a major Hispanic newspaper, and I've been taking notes because probably what I have learned here, I could perhaps interest them, do more articles. I was not referring to advertising. I was referring to coverage media that then later you use on your social media to spread the word. So basically that was an idea that hopefully will go through. And one back thing, back to the net metering. This is the situation. Sorry, I'm not an engineer, so correct me if I made a mistake. The tied grid system are the cheapest system out there because you don't need to invest in a battery. The way they work is that with your net metering, the utility now is your backup battery. So the way in general terms that system works is that when you are not using the electricity your PV system is generating, that energy is put back to the grid. So it's not that you're going to electrocute yourself by turning on your PV system when after Hurricane Irma. You were going to electrocute probably the utility crew working on your grid that went down because of the hurricane. So I don't know, might be a good project if there's none out there for engineering school to come up with some kind of a relay system that once that happened, you're not forbid to turn on your PV system because you can electrocute some crew that is working on the grid that went down because of the hurricane. And I understand that could be possible, and you don't have to go to either of those other four PV systems. You can stick with the lowest price range solar system that is the grid type one. But then in the eventuality of a hurricane, you can turn it on because it was not going to backfit the grid and therefore electrocute somebody working to restore power. That's what probably happened. Thank you.
Okay, hold on. We're gonna, hold on, so Jody's working hard on collecting all of these notes on things that we can do, that we want to take back to work on our education process. Have you been in a co-op yet? Okay. So you need to develop one for us, and then because we work on a lot of the educational pieces, we do lay out that these are grid-tied systems, and if you want to have backup, you'll have battery. That is a part of our solar information sessions, and we have 2 solar information session ambassadors here that travel around the state. So, but we're always looking to improve that, and so thank you for all of the feedback. So, everyone get their ideas down, and anything that we can do. We're developing tons of co-ops. We're developing tons of co-ops around the state, and we will continue to do so where the interest is. I've had a few requests from people that were wanting to connect with other people in their area. I know Osceola, there's Gainesville. We can certainly work on that. We can look at the people that attended today and try to connect you thereafter. So did anyone have any questions or have any feedback with regard to Glenn, our membership director, is here? So as you know, we've been developing co-ops around the state, and we're known for co-op, and we have a ton in the pipeline. But we do have this opportunity to actually become a member and get the benefits of going solar, with our help and hand-holding, helping you throughout the process, and helping with the education piece. It's a theme that is severely lacking in our state. So having that one-on-one, this is new for us, this is new for you all, and we're just slowly getting the word out. We want your feedback. Are there questions with regard to this membership? We do have Glenn here, and he's been sitting a while, so we want to give Ben some tough questions to answer.
Well, specifically to that point, and to you specifically, I know you're overloaded with new applications for co-ops. I'm in Osceola County. If I say I want to be the lead person in Osceola County, when can we actually do things together? And before we do things together, what can I do on my own?
There's a couple questions there. So you can do something on your own. You can become a member and go solar, and you can talk to Glenn. As far as, we do have a pipeline of co-ops around the state, so we're really looking at the summer of 2018. And that's depending on our staff capacity and travel. However, you're fairly close to some of our best solar information session ambassadors. Yes, so you're not far.
But I would like to do it
within a co-op.
Within a co-op.
Sure,
that
sure.
I organize so that I'm not telling people to do something that I'm not doing myself.
Sure, sure. So yeah, we're looking at right now the pipeline. We could maybe talk about the summer of 2018. As an individual, we have the membership option available. Questions about membership?
So the membership allows you to be.
I feel like I'm loud enough.
This is for Glenn.
So with the membership, it allows you as an individual to go solar individually rather than as a co-op. Okay, so that's something that wasn't clear to me, so hopefully that helped others.
So the same services for the educational materials, so basically a membership, you as a homeowner would, say, receive upwards of 3 or 4 proposals on your own, and we can help you define, give you the background technology, and we are absolutely and always going to remain installer neutral, but we can give you the tools to make the best informed decision for yourself, as well as have I think around the clock access to a help desk who can answer those questions. Is that pretty much the gist of it? Yeah, but it's one-on-one, the same service we provide to our co-op members. In some cases, our co-ops here are 200 plus, but we provide educational materials as well as facilitate a whole RFP process for the group. As an individual member, you as a homeowner would go and get 3 to 4 proposals. You could call our help desk and have one-on-one hand-holding, defining this is what a panel is, this is an inverter, this is what they're proposing, a certain kilowatts, that kind of thing. So, and a minimum of a year thereafter. So walking you through, and this is another thing we provide for co-op members, walk you through from sign up to RFP, you've received your proposal, your site visit, your proposal, and then install and beyond. Request for proposal. We send that out to local and state installers that are on our list to receive an RFP. By the way, if you're an installer and you're not on that list, I recognize some, then you definitely want to sign up. And we have a whole installer section on our website now, just for installers to learn more and how to sign up. So that, I hope I defined membership as opposed to co-op participant. So it's just a one-on-one, but you're getting the same service. Any more questions for us? Feedback you want to throw out at?
This is in regard to financing in the banks, and I don't know whether you can help with this or not, but I had my house appraised last fall. I got 0 credit for my solar system. I called the bank out on it, and they said, we don't know what it's worth. So I don't know whether you can help with that or not. I mean, I was in a presentation earlier where they said it's worth a lot, but it's something that needs to be gotten out there, because apparently a lot of people don't understand that.
Are you saying appraisal from a realtor?
From a bank. From a bank. We had our home appraised by our bank, and they gave me 0 for my solar installation. And when I asked them about it, they said, we don't know what it's worth. So I don't know whether you can help with that.
No, I'm a solar expert with solar sales.
I ran into a gentleman who markets mortgages, and he said the same exact thing. He bought his home without a solar system on it. It did not increase the value. And so I went back to my leadership, and my leadership's explanation was because of Amendment 4 and it being the tax-free equity, they're not adding that value to the appraisal. Maybe, if that makes sense.
Okay, that's a good point. We haven't heard that. That's something we want to definitely note to follow up and ask.
You gotta be careful what you ask for, because if you
Well, yeah.
appraiser 20,000 extra.
We're not asking anything.
The tax guy's gonna look at that appraisal and doesn't know how to differentiate all the subsystems within the home. So then you're gonna be calling the tax office and say, well, but now you're charging me extra 20,000. You want one side, but you don't want the other.
Right. That's a really.
The back appraisal is separate from the tax price.
But when you sell your home.
Hold on. We have a question in the back.
I did that in my last.
As I say, I'm actually with First Green Bank. And when we order an appraisal, we have to use a third party. We're not allowed to have any kind of influence over the appraiser because it has to be a third party value. So it's completely up to the appraiser whether or not they give a value. What our appraisers have said is that because of Amendment 4 and that the county property appraiser is not allowed to include that value when they do your tax assessed value of your house, the private industry appraisers don't know how to appraise it because they don't have a baseline value like they do. So what the industry will do is they'll look at what the county property appraiser says it's worth, and that's usually like a 20 to 30% discount. And then the private appraisers will.
There are training programs for.
Yeah, but it's entirely up to the appraiser, and the bank can have no influence over that. Like our loan is not based on your home value at all, so we don't use an appraisal for that. It's based solely on the price of the equipment.
The American Appraisal Institute has courses, and we have 25 appraisers in the state of Florida who completed the course. There are people out there who have learned how to make the appraisal.
Yeah, your bank would just have to use them. That we don't appraise your home. So that's like their baseline when they look at the county property appraiser's value of your home, and because the county property appraiser by law is not allowed to include the value of your solar system, then they don't have that baseline to go off of.
Any other?
There is an entry now in the appraisal forms, the standard appraisal forms, for solar, I forget, but PV is a listed item in the appraisal, and it was blank on my appraisal line. That's why I asked. I said, nothing? But if it's Amendment 4 or whatever it is, then that makes sense.
That's not fair for appraisal.
It would be that appraisal probably just didn't know.
But the point you were trying to make about the county appraiser not including that was so that it doesn't go against your property taxes? Yeah.
Yeah, they've already incorporated it as a separate box, so it's pretty straight math for the third and fourth grade. You know what I'm talking about?
All right, lots of great comments. Anything on this side of the room? We've
real
co-opted
estate attorney. And as a real estate attorney, I can tell you that it's about market value, and in the market approach, there are 3 approaches that appraisers use to value property. And for residential property, they would rely on the market approach. So they're looking at properties that have sold in that area. And the fact of the matter is, maybe in your area there aren't that many solar-powered homes. And in that respect, there's not the data there to be able to say, you know, a person would pay X amount of money for this property versus another property. There's not that many solar-powered homes. So it's based on the market. There's not that kind of comps and demand, you know. And that's the factor of the market value.
I was a realtor in a couple of states prior to this, and not Florida. But what they do is they're gonna want to find comps that are similar properties that are within a 1 mile radius to do their appraisal. And as she just said, there may not be enough to do that. So there's 2 other ways that they've done it. For me personally, I went for a home equity line of credit, got an appraisal on my house. Didn't end up getting line of credit, but essentially what the fellow did was he added about 70% of what I had paid for the system to the value of my home compared to the comps. And another method I've heard described is, well, they will look at the production of the system and they will take 9 years of what the system will produce and add that value to the value of your home. Exactly. So when they don't have enough comps, they will do an additive thing. So they'll find comps for your basic house and then add based on the value of the system. That each individual appraiser may use a slightly different methodology. In the next few years, as more and more of us do this, there will be comps and it'll go back to the regular way.
Earlier I said I'm with the Florida Renewable Energy Association. We're a club. And so we're mostly environmentally inclined people who like solar and renewable and all those save the earth things. For 22 years we've been doing a solar tour. And what it is we ask people to volunteer their solar house for general public to go into and see and talk to you. So they, rather than talking to a salesman or an installer or anybody like that who's trying to make money off of you, we ask people to open up their house like an open house, and for you who live in that house to tell your story, your experience, your story. We just finished that last month, and we teamed with the Sun Group, and we had 8 Sun houses, co-op houses, that were part of our tour out of 31 houses. So that means the general public was able to go because this kind person who had a solar powered house, who got it through the co-op, offered to talk about it and show it and display it. And so we do this every year in October, because October is Energy Month declared by whoever declares whatever, is an energy month, okay? So we do this every year in Energy Month. So if you wanted to be part of this next year, then let us know if you want to display and talk about your experiences for your house to allow the general public. So this is an education program. We're a nonprofit that does education of people who are inspired to share your experiences with others. So if you want to be part of the one next year, you can go to our webpage, Clean Energy Florida, and you'll see what we did this year. Okay, and then maybe you want to be part of it next year.
All right. Oh, a new question.
No, I've got a comment. Just in support of what he said, Florida Sun could take up the same idea of advertising by asking folks that have solar in it now to put the house up.
Exactly, and our director of engagement, too bad she's not in here, we have a whole kit, and we'll be slowly rolling that out. That's part of engaging our existing co-op members, the people that have gone solar. And if anyone in this room is interested in doing that, reach out to us. We have a whole kit. We'll mail you anything you would like to open up your home to show other community members. We would love to do that, so we'll definitely be doing that moving forward. Are there any more comments? Oh, I got the wind it up. So I do want to, feel free to hang out if you want, or we can slowly make our way to the Crafted Block and Brew. I believe we have chips and salsa outside that need to go along with anyone that would take them. There were a few that were worried. We had a lot of food left over, and Valencia College staff, that is going to be for them come later on tonight or tomorrow or whenever. So it has been refrigerated and we're donating it to the college. And again, so definitely join us. Oh, and a final, Jody's reminding me, we have a solar rights petition on our website. And it's right there. And so many things that you've discussed today are actually on that petition. We would love to collect thousands of signatures and share that with many people here today, Vote Solar and Southern Alliance for Clean Energy, who are working day in and day out, whether there's legislative session going on, and all throughout the year, we want to share that information with them so they can actually hear from you, not from us, not just the individuals that go to Tallahassee, but you're the ones that actually move things, your constituents. So sign that solar rights petition. It's in the back of the room, and it's on our website, and we have a Spanish language petition as well. Print it off, share it, send it back to us. We want to share, we want to help you fight for your own solar rights, but we need your help. So, that being said, there are 2 more people I'd like to acknowledge because I forgot to, and I feel really bad this morning. My husband Gary is in the back of the room, and he puts up with me traveling all over, and he finally just came to me this time, as well as my son Christian right there. Thank you. And they're going to be joining us at the Craft Block and Brew, and it's just down the road at Hiawassee Road. So again, thank you so much. Share this information. If we don't have a co-op planned in your area, reach out to us today. We want to get you on our calendar so we can grow more solar rooftops in and around our existing areas. So thank you again. Let's have some brew.
On a last note, one last note, look around you and please pick up any trash and throw it out on your way. Thank you so much.